Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this one we're going to be working on comparing decimals. As you can see here I have a number model 0 and 3/10 compared to 0 and 21 hundredths. That's what we're going to work on in the video. How do you compare those using less than, greater than, or equal? And if you're not sure how to read these two decimals on the screen, you might want to refer to the other video, fractions and decimals, as a refresher on how to read them. Because really in this video I'm going to focus primarily on how do you compare decimals, not so much on how do you read them. So let's get into the video and we'll look at a couple examples. As always, I'll give you some practice at the end. So if we start with two decimals, in this case we'll start with 0.3 and 0.7. And we're trying to compare these two, so in between we're going to use some symbol, greater than, less than, or equal. And really, you do need to be able to understand the place values here. I mean, we should know that that is the ones place, that is the tenths, T-E-N-T-H-S, T-E-N-T-H-S, tenths place. So ultimately what we're comparing here, since we have zeros in both of the ones place, we're really comparing 3/10 and 7/10. And in this case, I mean, it's pretty simple. You can see that over here on the left, we have a 3, and over here on the right, we have a 7. Well, by this point, you should all know that 7 is greater than 3, or 3 is less than 7, either way. So we would insert the symbol less than, and read this number model as 0 and 3/10 is less than 0 and 7/10. That's pretty much all it is. You're really looking at the place values and comparing the value of the digits in the places. Of course, it could get a little trickier, and I'll show you a couple of those, but that's pretty much what it boils down to. Look at the numbers in the individual places. In this case, we're looking just at the tenths place, and we can see that 3 is smaller than 7, so 3/10 is less than 7/10. Let's look at another one. In this case, let's go with 0 and 4/10. And again, we're going to compare that to a decimal of 0 and 2/10. Now again, realizing that we have a 0 in both of the ones places, so all we need to look at is the tenths place, and we're comparing 4 and 2. Well, in this case, again, you probably realize that 4/10 would be more than 2/10, so we insert the symbol greater than. 0 and 4/10 is greater than 0 and 2/10. And if you aren't sure which symbol to put in, you could always think of this as, you know, the Pac-Man, and Pac-Man wants to eat the bigger number, so the mouth should be open to the bigger number. Whatever method works for you, that's really all it boils down to. As I said, there are going to be some that are a little bit more confusing. I'm going to show you one of those in a second. And this time let's compare some, but we'll go out to the hundredths place. So we'll go with 0.43, and we will compare that to 0.29. Now, again, we have a 0 in the ones place in both numbers. We have a 4 in the tenths place in this number, and a 2 in the tenths place on the right. So you can see that 0 and 43 hundredths would be greater than 0 and 29 hundredths, because the 4 in the tenths place is more than the 2 in the tenths place over here. Now, it doesn't matter that this 3 is smaller than 9. We're only looking at the tenths place first. And 4/10 would be more than 2/10, so in this case we would say 0 and 43 100ths is greater than 0 and 29 100ths. Now, I've been telling you that you could possibly get tricked, and I'm going to show you one of those right now. So let's look at 0.8, and we'll compare that to 0.27. Now, what students often do, and you might even be thinking about this and about to make the same mistake, is students often just look at the two numbers and say, hey, 27 is more than 8, so 0.27 is greater. And this is where you're missing out on looking at the place value. So let's compare the ones place again, 0 and 0. Now we go to the next place to the right, which would be the tenths place. We're looking at 8/10 compared to 2/10. Well, we just talked about in the previous examples, 8/10 would be greater, because 8/10 over here would be the same as 80 100ths. And now if you want to look at both numbers, say, oh, 80 is bigger than 27. But you don't need to take it that far if you truly understand place value. You should realize that 80 100ths is greater than 27 100ths, because 8/10 is more than 2/10. Let's look at another one of those, and I'll give you one to do yourself. Okay? I'm also not going to read the decimals this time, because that kind of gives you a bit of an advantage. So we'll go with 0.11, and we will compare that to 0.09. Again, if you look at the ones place, 0 in both numbers, then we go to the next place to the right, we're comparing 1 and 0. Well, 1 is definitely greater than 0, so 11 tenths is greater than 9 tenths. Or sorry, excuse me, 11 100ths. This is 11 100ths, and this is 9 100ths. 11 100ths would be more than 9 100ths. I'll give you one more, and then you can pause the video and try to solve this one yourself. Compare that to... And go ahead and pause the video here. Then you're going to insert greater than, less than, or equal to try to figure out the comparison of the two decimals. Pause the video, give yourself a minute to work it out, and then I will show you the answer in a second. Okay, you had a chance to pause the video. I'm going to work this out just like I have been using the same strategy, comparing 0 in the ones place to 0 in the ones place. Then we look at the next place to the right. We're talking about 4 tenths compared to 9 tenths. That's as far as I need to go. I could look at this 7, but I don't need to, because I know that in the tenths place, 4 tenths is less than 9 tenths. So 47 100ths is less than 9 tenths. Remember, 9 tenths would be the same as 90 100ths, and if you want to write that 0 in, you certainly can, to realize that 47 100ths is indeed less than 90 100ths. Good luck. We'll see some of these in future lessons, and if you need to, as always, refer back to the video.